Welcome, I'm Jon Caldara, president of the Independence Institute and your devil's advocate. I've been looking forward to this one a long time. I'm a fan. I like him. He's been around doing this forever. Jonah Goldberg, thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You, of course, created National Review Online, and you're most famous for your blogging work there, but also for your best-selling book, Liberal Fascism, and in the new one you've got the Tyranny of Cliches,
right?
Which I can't spell cliches, so I'm glad I got a free book.
There you go.
Yeah.
A lot of reviewers can't spell it either.
Right.
But anyway.
First thing, let's just get this over. I want to show a picture of the cover of Liberal Fascism.
Okay.
Let's see if we can pop this up. This is your best-selling book that you had. Out of every book I've ever seen, this is the best freaking cover I have ever seen in my life. So I'm assuming it's yours. And
actually, it was not my idea. It was
really
inspired by something that's on the second page of the book. It's funny. I mean, all the criticism from all these people who hate the book because of the cover and can't get past the cover. And they always say they know what the book is about because of the cover. And I always explain it to them that it's borrowed from a rant by George Carlin on the Bill Maher show, where he says, look, if fascism ever comes to America, it's going to have a smiley face. It's going to have a corporate logo. It's going to be smiley face fascism. And you would think that that would get you some props from people, but it doesn't. And that's the great thing about the cover. It punches you in the nose. I mean, it sets people off.
Hitler ruined little mustaches for everybody.
He did.
Bastard.
Yeah, no, he did. But it's funny, Mussolini didn't ruin strong jaws. So,
or wild hand gestures while talking, which is good.
I suppose that's
true.
Yes.
We wops like that. Tell me a little bit about. First of all, let's go with NRO first.
Sure.
NRO, National Review Online, really I think was one of the first substantial on the web conservative go-to sites, and now there's tons, but to get news and to get views, National Review really got a head start. You were at the beginning of that.
I was. I was brought on board in '98 by Rich Lowry, and it already had a website, but no one really knew what we were doing with it. That's not a criticism. It's just no one knew really how to work the web back then. And it was largely what we used to call a placemat site. You get your subscription information, that kind of thing. You sign up for emails. And the idea, I was very lucky in that back then, consumers were very nervous about what to trust on the web. And the one thing that National Review definitely had going for it was a brand name of sort of good housekeeping seal of approval conservatism. William F. Buckley, National Review, they were the Coca-Cola of sort of conservative journalism. And so it was trustworthy on the web, at a time when you couldn't really tell what to trust. And
one of the things I think you did well was you got quick stories up there fast. You had the corner, which allowed people to put things on pretty quickly. And now we're addicted to this,
right?
Which is why newspapers are dead, because we want it now.
Right. Oh, that was the thing, is back then we could jump into the news cycle and respond to stuff that had been on cable TV that came out after the papers and all that. And the amazing thing over the last 12 years, 14 years, however long I've been doing this, is how the news cycle keeps shrinking. And now on Twitter, the news cycle is about a minute long. And in some ways, we can't get in that granular anymore. But we've sort of established ourselves as such a sort of a place to be that it doesn't matter as much. That's not really our role anymore.
Well, I'm always curious about this because here in Colorado, it's just like every other big city. The traditional media is just collapsing.
Yeah.
Radio, television, and particularly newspapers. The Denver Post is a wonderful newsletter now, and it's great to have. But I'm looking for what replaces that.
Yeah.
And what survives on the internet is so fast. I know Twitter right now during political season is quite the buzz. I don't see that being the long term. Where does it all go?
Well, look, if I had an answer to that, I would be very excited. I mean, I actually just met, I'm a syndicated columnist, and I met with my syndicate in Chicago.
Yes, we know you're cool.
Yeah, if that made me cool, I'd be so psyched. Everyone's trying to figure it out. Everyone sort of knows that newspapers are dying. And the weird, and part of the problem is that basically news and commentary have been commodified. The syndicates used to be able to provide this real role, which was they could take copy that was in, say, the San Francisco Chronicle and get it into the Cleveland Plain Dealer. And the days before, faxes and email and all that, that was actually a real value add. That was a difficult thing to do. And now, if you want to read Tom Sowell and you live in San Diego, your local newspaper doesn't need to subscribe to it. You can read it in the Albany Gazette or whatever. And so the barriers to these markets, all the markets have just crumbled for the news business, and no one knows how to deal with it. The irony is that even as newspapers are dying, people have more access to more information than they've ever had before. So I mean, it's not necessarily bad for the consumer. It's bad for people like me who want to make money from this, or at least to have a predictable way to go for a career. I kind of feel like, Frodo at the end of Lord of the Rings. I finally make it to this realm of, and everything just starts crashing around me. So, like, I don't know. I remember when I was doing National Review Online, and word came out that the Wall Street Journal was launching this thing called Opinion Journal, and I felt like I was the corner hardware store that has two kinds of nails, rusty and non-rusty, and and Home Depot is moving across the street. I remember talking to my dad, who was in the newspaper business all his life. He passed away a few years ago. And I said, Dad, I'm going to get crushed. And he says, no, that's the exact wrong reaction. He says, you never want to be in a business where people smarter than you and more experienced than you looked at what you're doing and said, that's a really stupid idea. You want to be in a business where those people feel, hey, how come that guy beat us to it? And what the Opinion Journal did was it credentialed and legitimized online journalism.
But also for that, that's an advertisement for the Wall Street Journal, the only publication I know that actually makes money online.
That's right.
So it's a taste. It's the first one's free, but you want to see the rest of this article, you pay your $35 or whatever it is. Tell you what, let's talk a little local politics, and then I want to get to your new book as well. Colorado's a swing state. Mm-hmm. It is, between that and Ohio. I know you've been here for all of 2 hours now.
But my finger's already on the pulse of the place.
I know you're that good. Give me some handicapping right now. From what you're seeing as you're flying around, I mean, I don't think Colorado has quite woken up to the fact that this could be Florida of 2012.
Yeah.
We're just closing our eyes. We hate the attack ads. What are you seeing?
Well, just take a step back and show the big picture. I was at both conventions, and
sorry about that.
Yeah,
I've been to those. They're awful. You don't want to go.
I'm still detoxing, and the simple fact is that if you go by the conventional rules of American politics, going back at least 30, 40 years, one of those conventions was an absolute disaster, and we just don't know which, or the rules have changed, right? Because if it's the same rules we've had for our adult lives. What the Democrats did was incredibly dumb. They were proud, open, cultural liberals running on wedge issues, running on abortion, taking the word rare out of the platform. They actually had a voice vote on whether or not to include God in the platform, and they renounced God 3 times. I mean, even Peter didn't do that in front of the cameras, right, in the New Testament. And they were unapologetically a liberal, culturally liberal.
Not only that, they said the course we're on, and everyone seems to agree we're on the wrong course.
Right.
Are we on the right track? They said we need to go further. We need to go further.
Right.
We need to go further. So either this is genius, or it's
not.
Awful.
Yeah, and then meanwhile, the Republicans, who have for the last 30 or 40 years, have had a decided advantage in presidential politics. Right. The only 2 Democrats to win in the last 40 years were an evangelical Christian from Georgia, and a guy who ran against welfare and for the death penalty, and promised to fight the brain-dead politics of his own base and had sister soldier moments. Those are the only 2 Democrats to win until Obama in 2008. And what the Obama people are betting is that they fundamentally changed the center of gravity of the American people, and we're a center-left country now. The Obama people seem to have bought into this.
By the way, I don't think they're wrong right now.
I don't know that they're wrong, which terrifies me. And meanwhile, the Romney people have basically bought into this idea, and they're terrified of scaring away the statistical abstraction of a 37-year-old unaffiliated woman in the Ohio suburbs. And that's who their whole campaign is geared at. They didn't talk about foreign policy. They didn't really talk about domestic policy. They didn't talk about policy at all. It was all sort of a Michael Dukakis kind of approach.
Like me.
I'm smarter. I'm better than the other guy. It's okay if you voted for Obama. They never used the word liberal in any of their speeches. And so either one of these conventions is based on an incredibly wrong theory, or the rules of American politics have fundamentally changed. And Colorado, I think, fits into the Obama theory.
Right now, most polls have Obama up. And again, we have 50 separate elections. So the national polls, I really don't care about. The ones I care about are the ones here in Colorado, which have Obama up by a couple of points.
Right.
The one that I'm really worried about is Ohio, which people seem to think this is the must-win. And Dems had a nice bounce. They had a great show. They always do a much better show.
Sure.
They're showmen. Look at my set. This is what conservatives think is a hip set. You know. So, ever notice that the staging is always better at the DNC? Is that the beginning of the momentum that's going to take us through? Here in Colorado, we don't have election day. We have an election month.
Right.
And that's going to start in just a few weeks.
Yeah.
And it's over. I'm not seeing momentum with the Romney campaign the way I'd like to, especially here in Colorado, where you can't even get a Romney sign from headquarters. They don't have any.
Really?
Yeah.
Because they're out because there's so much enthusiasm?
That's it.
Look, first of all, as a policy matter, and this has nothing to do with Romney, this has been my position for a very long time, I think these long, open-ended absentee ballot voting periods are a terrible idea. And I've been against them for a really long time.
But you understand why politicians like them.
Oh, sure.
Because once they can track as the votes come in, and as soon as your ballot's in, they don't call you, they don't send you a mailer, they leave you alone, you're dead to them,
and they get
to save the money.
And they get to put your votes in the bank. They know what they've got. I mean, I understand the number cruncher guys like them and all that. And I understand that very busy people like them.
Let me add one other thing why I hate those absentee ballots and early balloting is the downstream ballot initiatives here in Colorado are often tax and debt issues, which early on have great numbers because it's for the school, it's for the gymnasium, whatever it is.
And the facts don't come later.
And the facts come a week before the election when finally somebody at the Post goes, we better do a story on what that really is so we can say we do it. And so it's a huge benefit for those who want to grow government. They love mail-in ballots. I wonder why.
And so anyway, I mean, I also just think that there's an importance for deadlines, that they focus the mind. I think that if you're going to value something, you make it more scarce, right? The value of something increases with its scarcity. And so if you increase the price of voting, people will take it more seriously.
Also, it's just more fun. It's
election day, I agree.
It's Super Bowl. It's that day. Get to the polls that day. You see your family, you see your friends, you see your neighbors.
But in terms of Romney, I think they are terrified about Ohio. They're saying that they're not. I'll disagree with you a little bit, is that eventually the national polls do matter. Eventually the state polls and the national polls tend to sort of come together towards election day. But I agree with you. Right now it's 8, 10 different elections. And if you just play with any one of those hundreds of electoral college maps, it's very difficult to see how Romney gets to where he needs to go without Ohio. Now it's possible he'll win Wisconsin. Which would help offset Ohio, but he would still need to win Florida and Virginia. I mean, you can play these games at home on the home edition of the show. But Romney is playing catch-up. They are, so far, I'm very frustrated with the Romney campaign because they've based their election on this, it's just a referendum on Obama thing, which means that they are averse to putting forward any serious ideas about things. You would have no idea that Mitt Romney had picked Paul Ryan as his running mate if you listened to Mitt Romney's speech. And I'm a huge Paul Ryan fan. If I could flip that ticket, I would in a heartbeat. But they're running on a theory about this season that, if their theory is right, and it was a brilliant convention, it's a brilliant campaign, but it just seems to me that we're supposed to be the party of ideas. We have ideas. And I shouldn't say we, I mean conservatives, because I'm not really
Romney seems to go right. You know when you have two pins on the bowling alley and you have to hit one and make it bounce over? And he's riding right in the middle, not hitting either one. And that he's not singing to the base. It's hard to have a guy who brought a version of Obamacare to a state. He's not what you call a hardcore fiscal conservative to excite the base. At the same time, to those people in the middle, unaffiliated female voters, does he have a televangelist feel that people just don't like? There's something there, and it's this emotional thing. Paul Ryan, I think, was the right choice. He gave a spark. Let him out. Get a little bit of that into Mitt. And Mitt's got to show up. He hasn't been here in Colorado. Now, the president is here every third day like clockwork, going to one college campus at a time, promising that if you go out and work, you won't have to pay your student loans back. brilliant strategy. Works.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing is, he's visiting college campuses more often than a Red Bull delivery truck because the only reason why he won the way he did in 2008 was he blew out the model, right? The normal standard estimate of what the size of the what share of the electorate was going to be the youth vote or the black vote or the Hispanic vote, he just blew out those categories. And there's some states he cannot win unless he gets up youth enthusiasm again. I'm still dubious that he's going to be able to do that. I don't believe that he's going to get, he still might get 2/3 of the youth vote, but the share of the electorate that is young is going to be smaller this time.
Harder to be enthusiastic about an economy when you graduate and there's a 1 in 4 chance you're not going to find a job and you're going back home to live in mom's basement.
Right.
And by my mom, thanks, but no more mac and cheese. All right, I want to talk a little bit about the new one.
Okay.
This is some good stuff. I live in Boulder. I live in the Berkeley of the Rockies. So cliches are a way of life.
Right.
You can't prepare and avoid war at the same time. What's this one all about?
Right. Well, so
and by the way, cover not as cool, still fun.
Yeah, I agree.
But
I agree.
No Hitler mustache.
Yeah. So the basic thesis of the book, what sets up the argument for the book. Well, first of all, what I wanted to do is I wanted to write a funnier book because liberal fascism. I'm very proud of its success. It did really well. It's in 7, 8 languages now. But it wasn't a fun book to read. I mean, there's only so far you can go in sort of making, hey, funny thing about the Holocaust, And so I wanted to have a little more fun with this book. But still, the sort of intellectual framework that I set up for it is that one of the things that drives me absolutely batty is this argument that liberals are not ideological, that they are not. That they're basically that they're just pragmatists and realists and empiricists and fact finders, and they're the ones who believe in sound science and are members of the reality-based community and all that. And conservatives are ideologues and crazy and non-empirical and don't care about the facts. And I think that this is one of the. I trace the intellectual history of this a little bit. This is a direct result in many ways of a little bit of Marxism, but mostly of American pragmatism, which was an ideological con job, a sort of a Trojan horse that allowed ideological liberals and progressives to declare war on all competing ideologies.
Give me an example or two. Make it real for me.
Okay, well, let's give an example. So one of the examples is over the beginning of the book. Jonathan Chait used to be with the New Republic. He wrote an essay in the New Republic called Fact Finders. And it was all about how liberals only believe in the facts, only believe in where the data takes them. And he begins his piece by saying, if God came to earth and said to conservatives, if God came to earth and said to liberals, well, it turns out that it is just objectively true that free market economics are superior to your Keynesian statist stuff, then liberals would happily give up their wrong ideas and become free market types. But if God came to earth and told conservatives that, they wouldn't let go because they're so ensorcelled and spellbound by ideology. And so one of the examples he uses, which you know very well, is this talking point that conservatives like to say we have the best healthcare system in the world. This was written a few years before Obamacare, and he says, don't these conservative idiots understand that it's nothing like that? And he cites this World Health Organization study that ranked us 37th in the world,
which has more holes than Swiss cheese. Right. I know this study well.
Right. It's quite possibly the worst study ever. Or
when the premier of Ottawa or someplace comes down to Florida to get his heart surgery.
Right. Leaving the second best healthcare system in the world for the 37th.
Right.
Something wrong with the study. Right. And one of the problems with the study was that it basically took a poll of World Health Organization bureaucrats and other affiliated sort of NGO types, and asked them what healthcare systems they liked the best. And its metric for how you scored was on your financial fairness, which basically meant the better you were at redistributing wealth to pay for your healthcare system, the better healthcare system it was. Now, if you applied that logic to higher education, you would say that the community college down the road was better than Princeton or Yale or MIT because it's better at redistributing wealth to poor people.
That's true halfway, by the way.
In some ways it is, certainly in the English department probably.
Yeah.
But this is the approach they have, is they sort of say, hey, look, there's a study. It proves we're right and you're wrong. We have science on our side. And you can find this in everything from the environmentalism, where they insist that they have all the science, all the facts on their side.
The beautiful thing that I live in the midst of it. And what they end up doing is repeating it often enough so that it seeks into your subconscious. In the hometown of Boulder, by the way, it's illegal to own a dog. It's illegal to own a dog. You can't own a cat. You can't own any pets, period.
Really?
All right. You can, however,
have a companion.
Be a pet guardian. Now, and everybody giggled when they made this change, and they changed every time it was in the city ordinances.
Yeah.
But you think about it, over time, what's happened is our little kids now think they're pet guardians, and the term is guardian. And over the course of years, you start thinking you don't own what you own. You're merely taking care of it.
Right.
It owns itself. The semantic warfare that the left uses is superb. Affirmative action is not race-based discrimination. It's affirmative action.
Right.
I mean, we could go through
I know.
all of
Orwell
it.
writes about this in Politics in the English Language. He says that he doesn't use the word cliche, but he talks about dead metaphors and euphemisms, and he says they come to us like prefabricated hen houses, right? And basically what they do is they win intellectual territory unearned by argument. So you hear people say all the time, violence never solved anything, right? And this is supposed to be this incredibly wonderful, insight into human nature.
Except for freeing our nation and
Right, except for ending slavery, ending the Holocaust.
Right.
It turns out that violence is actually pretty useful, particularly in violent situations. But it's one of these things that sort of everybody knows, and it's what de Tocqueville called a clear but false idea. It gets in your head because it seems right, but it's actually profoundly wrong. Plus, the part of the point of the book is that it advances an expressly ideological argument by masquerading itself as sort of a hallmark card truism. We get the phrase largely from Gandhi. Now, it's important to realize that Gandhi did not have a universal application of this principle. His advice to the British was that they should surrender en masse to the Nazis. He says, give up your beautiful island, give up your homes, but keep your integrity, because violence doesn't solve anything. He didn't say it to Hitler. He called Hitler his friend. His advice to the Jews of Germany was that they should commit mass suicide, because that would really show the Germans. And, my last name's Golberg. You might sense I don't find this the most efficacious policy proposal. And so, but what people forget is the reason why it was a successful Gandhian nonviolence was so successful was that it appealed to the consciences of a decent democratic people, the British. Orwell writes wonderful stuff about Gandhi, and he says, look, if there's a Gandhi in the Soviet Union, if there's Gandhi in Nazi Germany, we don't know who they are because they're carted off in the middle of the night and killed. And it's only because in a decent society. And so many of these phrases that we hear.
Give me a couple more.
Oh gosh. I know one of the ones that Obama likes. I don't know. I try to treat it a bunch of these, lump them together. One of the ones I love that Obama loves to use is, if one American has a problem, we all have a problem. Right? Which is, if that's true, I want him to come to my house and fix my toilet. The problem with this is that, as my boss at the American Enterprise Institute will tell you, is that part of the whole idea of happiness, the whole idea of the pursuit of happiness, is that you have to have some problems that are your problems. Because the only way you can really feel like you've made a success of yourself in life is if you conquered your problems by yourself. There is this whole warp and we heard at the Democratic Convention, someone sat down and looked at a script and approved it that said, government is the only thing we all belong to, right? And this is like the Barney Frank, Deval Patrick line about how government is just the word we use for those things that we do together, which is just a sort of terrifying expression. Hillary Clinton liked to say, we as a country need to move beyond the idea that there's any such thing as somebody else's child. Which my understanding is largely why we have a Second Amendment is because my kid's mine. Right?
I enjoyed the word citizenship in the DNC. And the price for this is citizenship. What the hell does that mean?
Right.
The price means you pay something,
right.
And that means we all share. And this is, the way to cloak redistribution is a wonderful thing, and the way to vilify ownership is this wonderful class baiting, and nobody does it better. It's higher now. Class warfare right now is at an all-time high, led by the redistributor in chief.
Yeah, no, I agree. And when I heard that citizenship stuff, I thought it would make so much more sense if you crossed out the word citizen and put in comrade, right? Because that was sort of the gist of it. Is that the goal of liberalism since the progressive era has been to turn citizens into clients of the state, right? And that's what's so terrifying about Obamacare, is that it changes our relationship to the state where we are dependent on the state. And this is one of the reasons. I mean, for conservatives and libertarians, whatever Romney's flaws, what is so terrifying about the current political situation, is that it's even close. That Obama might actually win. If you go by, the things that this country was founded on and the things that conservatives are supposed to believe, this should not even be close. And my fear is that I think America will endure. America has an amazing capacity for self.
Have you seen the debt?
Yeah, no, look,
Are you
I
sure
agree.
it will endure? Have you seen unfunded mandates? You sure you want to say it will endure?
I agree. Well, look, I agree there are huge problems. But as Herb Stein, the economist, once said, those things that cannot go on forever must eventually stop. And eventually, we are going to have an incredibly rude awakening, no matter who is president, because that's just the math of it. And I would have thought, though, Edmund Burke said that example is the school of mankind, and he will learn it no other. By which it meant, you have to learn from actual experience. I think Ed Koch said it better. He said when he was voted out of office as mayor of New York, he was asked if he was ever going to run again. And he said, no, the people of New York fired me, and now they must be punished. And I would have thought after these last 4 years, with this absolutely abysmal economy, with a healthcare law that has never been popular, that people would take away from this that we made a mistake voting for this guy who was a charming, exciting guy that was uplifting, but it was a mistake. But that's not the lesson people seem to be taking.
You forget. We're humans. We want certain outcomes and guaranteed outcomes. He's selling that, and we're going to buy it. Jonah, thank you. The book, Tyranny of the Cliches. This is good stuff. Hey, listen for me every Sunday on 6:30 KHOW. Check out the Independence Institute. That's independenceinstitute.org. Tell a friend about Devil's Advocate, and please come back next week. We'll see you then.